Night, a quiet suburban street, a single house at the end of a cul-de-sac. No streetlights reach this far. The world is silent, but Elena Carter doesn't notice, because it always is. Elena moves through her small home, tying her damp hair into a bun. Fresh out of the shower, she checks her phone, a single unread text. "Mom, are you okay? Haven't heard from you today." She types a quick reply. "I'm fine, just tired." She sets the phone down on the nightstand, reaches for the lamp. Click. Darkness. She settles into bed. The house is still, peaceful. But just outside, someone is watching. A shadow lingers beyond the window, perfectly still. The man in the dark doesn't blink. He studies every movement she makes, the way she breathes, the way she clutches the blanket before turning on her side. He knows everything about her. 6 months of study. Inside, Elena shifts in her sleep. The faintest frown creases her face, like she can sense something just beyond her understanding. The man steps away. Soon, morning. Sunlight streams through the curtains. Elena wakes, stretching her arms. Everything is normal. Almost. She moves through the house making coffee, but something feels off. She checks the front door, locked, the windows secure. She shakes off the feeling. Maybe she's just tired. But when she enters the bathroom, she stops cold. Her toothbrush isn't where she left it. She knows it was by the sink last night. Now it's across the counter, a tiny, insignificant detail. But her stomach knots. Maybe she moved it without thinking. Maybe. But in the mirror, behind her shoulder, the closet door is open just an inch wider than before. She turns, stares, holds her breath. Then with a trembling hand, she reaches forward, grabs the door, and slams it shut. Night. The wind rattles the windows. Elena sits on the couch, scrolling through her phone. The glow of the screen is the only light in the room. She pauses. Her eyes shift toward the hallway. The bedroom door is open. She doesn't remember leaving it that way. Slowly, she gets up, walks toward it. Her pulse quickens as she steps inside. The blankets are slightly pulled back, like someone sat on the bed. She stares, frozen. Maybe she did that earlier. Maybe she's just imagining things. She forces herself to exhale, walks back to the couch, tries to ignore the gnawing feeling in her chest. Then, a soft click. Her bedroom door just closed on its own. The next day, morning sun spills into the room, but Elena's unease lingers. She grabs her phone. A notification waits for her. Unread message, unknown number, I see you. Her stomach drops. She stares at the screen. A mistake? A prank? She types back. "Elena, who is this?" No response. She blocks the number, sets the phone down, forces herself to breathe. Behind her, the closet door shifts slightly. She doesn't see it. Later that evening, Elena sits across from her best friend, Lisa, at a coffee shop. She hesitates before speaking. "I think someone's been in my house." Lisa blinks, half smiling. She doesn't take it seriously. "You sure you're not just tired? Maybe you moved stuff and forgot." Elena frowns. Maybe Lisa is right. Maybe it's just stress. But that night, when she comes home, the toothbrush is back where it was before. In the darkness, the killer smiles. He watches from a distance, unseen, patient. He knows the fear is growing, the doubt, the paranoia. It always starts this way. He doesn't need to attack yet. He just needs her to break. Night. Elena is in bed, scrolling through her phone. Her body is exhausted, but her mind is racing. She taps the lamp off. Darkness. She turns on her side, eyes heavy. Then, the light flicks back on. She blinks, slowly sits up, reaches out, taps it off again. A beat of silence. Then, it flicks on again. A shiver crawls up her spine. Her hand trembles as she reaches for the lamp a third time. But before she touches it, the light shuts off on its own. She doesn't sleep that night. Morning. Elena installs a security camera in her living room, determined to prove she isn't imagining things. She checks the app on her phone. The feed is clear. That night, as she sleeps, a shadow moves across the screen. But when she checks the footage in the morning, it's gone. The timestamp jumps from 3:02 a.m. to 3:05 a.m. 3 minutes erased. Her hands shake as she stares at the screen. She isn't crazy. Someone is in her house. Night. Elena lies awake, heart pounding. She keeps the security feed open on her phone, watching the empty living room. A call comes through. Unknown caller. She hesitates, answers. Silence. Then a whisper. "Why are you awake?" She jolts upright, gasping. Her phone screen flickers, then shows the security feed. The front door is wide open, but when she runs to check, it's locked. She backs away, pulse racing. Her phone vibrates again. A new text. Unknown number. you forgot to say goodnight. She drops the phone. Midnight. Elena sits on the couch, hugging her knees. Every light in the house is on. She doesn't care if it's paranoid. Then a floorboard creaks behind her. Her breath catches. She slowly turns. The hallway is empty. She grabs her phone, starts dialing 911. But before she presses call, the closet door swings open. Inside, the clothes hang still. The darkness is deep, too deep. She stares into it, waiting. Something is in there. She knows it, but then a new text buzzes. She lowers her gaze to the screen. Unknown number. Stop looking. I'm not there anymore. Morning. Elena wakes up, exhausted. Her heart still races from last night, but as she moves through the house, everything is normal. The closet door is shut. The security footage is untouched. No text from the unknown number. She clutches her phone, staring at the screen. Did she imagine it? Is she losing her mind? Her breathing steadies. Maybe it was just stress. Maybe she needs sleep. She lets out a shaky laugh. Of course, nothing is wrong. She doesn't see the shadow standing in the hallway, watching her. That night, Elena avoids the bedroom, sleeps on the couch. The silence of the house presses down on her. Her eyes flutter open at 3:12 a.m. She sits up, body stiff. She doesn't remember waking up. Then she notices her bedroom light is on. Her chest tightens. She never turned it on. She forces herself to move step by step toward the bedroom door. Her hand trembles as she pushes it open. The room is empty, but something feels wrong. Her gaze drifts toward the mirror. She stands still, breathing heavily. Her reflection stares back. The room behind her is empty. Then her reflection blinks. But she didn't. Her stomach twists. Her eye in the light flickers, and the reflection is normal again. She stumbles back, shaking. The mirror is just a mirror, right? But before she leaves, she notices something. The closet door is open again. Later, she texted Lisa, desperate. I swear, someone's been in my house. Elle, you're not sleeping. You're scaring yourself. Elena grips the phone, her heart pudding. Then who texted me? Lisa sighs. Just ignore it. You'll see. It'll stop. Elena swallows hard. She wants to believe her. But that night, she wakes up to a cold breath on the back of her neck. She freezes. Every muscle locks. The room is silent, but she feels it. Something is right behind her. She doesn't move, doesn't breathe. Her heart pounds so hard it hurts. Then her blanket shifts, slowly, like someone is pulling it away. She turns fast, but no one is there. She sits up, gasping, looks around wildly. The room is empty, but her blanket is on the floor, and her phone is on her pillow, with the camera open, recording her while she slept. The next night, Elena triple checks the locks before bed. She grips a kitchen knife under the blankets. She won't be caught off guard again. Her eyes fight to stay open, but exhaustion takes over. Her breath slows. Then something shifts under the bed. A whisper, so soft she almost doesn't feel it. Good night, Elena. Her eyes snap open. A hand grabs her ankle, yanking her down. She screams, but no one hears her. Elena is yanked off the bed. She thrashes, kicking wildly, but the grip on her ankle is too strong. She crashes onto the floor, head slamming against the hardwood. Her vision blurs. A shadow moves above her. She scrambles back, gasping. Her fingers claw for the knife under the blanket, but it's gone. A deep, slow voice fills the room. Killer, you've been awake too much, Elena. Her stomach drops. The voice is so close. She forces herself up, stumbling toward the door, but it slams shut. A sharp, dragging sound fills the silence. She turns, shaking. The knife is on the floor, and the killer's boot is pressing on it. She can't see his face, only his dark silhouette standing between her and escape. Her breath is ragged, panicked. Who are you? A pause, then a whisper. No one, but I know you. She runs. Elena barrels through the hallway, heart pounding. She doesn't look back. She can't. She slams into the front door, fumbles with the lock. Her hands shake too much, a low chuckle behind her. Killer, you're not deaf to fear, are you? She whips around. Nothing. She gasps for breath, then sees movement in the reflection of the window. He's right behind her. She screams and ducks as a blade swipes past her head. It slams into the doorframe. Wood splinters. She doesn't hesitate. She bolts toward the kitchen. Elena grabs a heavy frying pan. Her hands are slick with sweat. She grips it tight. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. She presses against the counter, forcing herself to breathe quietly. The killer's shadow stretches across the kitchen tiles. I like it when they fight. She lunges, swinging the pan. Clang. The metal connects with his arm. He grunts but doesn't stumble. Instead, he grabs her wrist. His grip crushes down. She screams. The pan clatters to the floor. He yanks her closer. She kicks, struggles, but he's too strong. His masked face tilts, studying her. "Killer, you're shaking. Do you finally believe in me?" She jerks her head forward, slamming it into his face. He staggers back. She doesn't waste time. She runs for the basement. Elena races down the basement steps. She slams the door shut behind her, locking it. The only sound is her ragged breathing. Total darkness. She gropes along the wall. Her fingers find a flashlight. She flicks it on. A single beam of light cuts through the blackness. She presses her back against the cold stone wall, trying to silence her breath. Then, soft tapping from inside the basement. She slowly turns the flashlight. The beam trembles. The light catches movement in the corner. She stifles a scream. There's something there, hunched, breathing. Her chest tightens in pure horror. Then a voice right beside her ear. "Killer, you should have never come down here." The flashlight flickers out. Total darkness. Then a deafening scream. Total darkness. Elena's shaky breaths echo in the basement. The air is thick, suffocating. A low chuckle rumbles from the shadows. "Killer, you've made this fun." Elena spins, swinging wildly with her flashlight. Nothing. Then fingertips graze her throat. She shrieks and bolts, but the killer grabs her hair, yanking her back. She slams into the floor. The flashlight spins away, casting wild, flickering shadows. She crawls, gasping, but he stomps on her hand. Crunch. A sickening snap. Her fingers break. Her scream tears through the basement. The killer kneels beside her, his breath hot against her ear. "Killer, cry for me." He twists her broken fingers. She wails in agony. Elena forces herself up, stumbling toward the old metal shelves in the corner. She grabs a rusty screwdriver. The killer watches, amused. "Killer, oh, you still want to fight?" She doesn't answer. She lunges, stabbing the screwdriver deep into his side. Squelch. His body jerks, but he doesn't scream. He laughs. His hand clamps over hers, forcing the screwdriver in deeper. She gags as warm blood coats her fingers. Then, he slams his forehead against her skull. Her world shatters into white-hot pain. She collapses, dazed. Blood drips from her forehead. "Killer, that was cute." He yanks the screwdriver out of his flesh with a wet, disgusting rip. Elena is barely holding on. She's dizzy, broken, bleeding. The killer drags her by her ankle across the floor. She kicks, slamming her heel into his jaw. His head snaps back. A low growl. She claws at the ground, her fingernails tear off against the concrete. She grabs a shattered glass bottle. She swings, slicing his arm open. Blood sprays. For the first time, the killer grunts in pain. Her chest heaves. This is her moment. She forces herself up, body screaming in pain. She sprints toward the stairs. Just a few more steps, a hand grips her throat. She is ripped backward. Her spine slams against the wall. "You almost made me sweat." His hands wrap around her neck, tightening, squeezing. Her vision fades. Her feet kick uselessly. Her lungs burn. She's dying. Elena's body goes limp. The killer watches as her eyes roll back. Her lips tremble, desperate for air. He leans in, whispers, "I want you to see it." He loosens his grip. She collapses to the floor, coughing, wheezing. She isn't dead yet. He wants her to know it's coming. He kneels beside her. His bloodied fingers caress her bruised face. 6 months. No one survives past 7. Her eyes widen in horror. Then, the knife plunges deep into her stomach. She chokes. Blood spills from her lips. The pain is unbearable. He twists the blade. Her body jerks. Her vision fades. She is dying, and he is watching, smiling. Elena lies in a pool of her own blood. Her body twitches, broken beyond saving. The killer stands, watching her struggle. Her hand weakly reaches out to nothing. Her last, fragile breath escapes. Then, silence. The killer tilts his head, admiring his work. He steps over her body, calm, unbothered. He walks up the stairs, disappearing into the night, and the house falls into cold, endless quiet. The house is silent. The air is thick with the smell of blood and death. Elena's lifeless body lies on the basement floor, eyes frozen in terror. The killer stands at the doorway, gazing down at her. He kneels. Gently, almost affectionately, he brushes a blood-matted strand of hair from her face. "You were my favorite." A long pause. Then he hums, a soft, eerie melody. The same melody Elena used to hum when she cooked, when she cleaned, when she sat alone in silence. His head tilts. How does he know it? He reaches into his pocket, pulling out a small, tattered notebook. The pages are filled with names. Dates, every victim, every 6 months. And beneath Elena's name, a new name is already written. A date, 6 months from now. The cycle never ends. He stands, unbothered. With one last glance at Elena's broken body, he turns and walks away. The door creaks shut behind him. The screen fades to black. Then a single sound, a low, wet gasp from the basement. Elena's fingers twitch, cut to black.